Alex, where's your head at with the state of the presidential race right now?
It's good. I don't really see a lot of movement, which is interesting. And I think I think Donald Trump's got the better electoral map, as I've been noting. I saw one Georgia poll I didn't like the other day, but basically all he needs to do is keep North Carolina and flip Georgia and Pennsylvania, and he's done. And that doesn't even count if he upsets somewhere like Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and even Virginia. All those are in play. So you'd rather be Trump right now. But I'm not seeing a ton of movement. I don't like the Mark Robinson story, that I don't know if you brought this up for the audience, but that he got busted on, a adult website, writing the most, truly insane things you've ever read in your life, if you read them, and stuff that we probably can't even put buried in the articles at Breitbart of all places. Because it's too gnarly, and I don't want families to have to see that or tell their kids to avoid it and stuff it's that crazy. So that's not going to help Trump. It's just not, and it's kind of sad because that's just what people do in their private time 10 years ago should not affect the presidential election, in my opinion. But it's just a reality. The stuff's off the wall. So I'd still rather be Trump right now. I think he's 60-40 favorite to win, but people have got to be working. We've got to be working. They cannot take anything for granted. It is not that far apart.
No. Do you think there still is a polling bias?
No. No. So here's the thing. So in 2012, we all thought there was polling bias, and there wasn't. In 2016, we all thought that. I mean, I didn't. I knew the polls were off in 2016, but it's a lot of people didn't, and then of course they were way off. And then in 2020, the polls were reasonably right about the national vote. But obviously that wasn't the story of the election. The story of the election was cheat by mail. And it was, and the fact that they somehow got Joe Biden a walking, talking cadaver, 80 million votes. I mean, that was the story, that they figured out a way to manufacture those. So, and I'm not saying they did it illegally. I'm just saying they did it. So that's the story. So, so I know better than to say the polls are right or wrong at this point. I'm not a polling expert. There are some polls I like and some polls I don't. And I'll tell you, Mike, that's a 30-minute conversation with Boyle that might be worth doing. And it's truly there's all these things that you can look at in terms of past record of the polls, trends. What you really want to look at, every poll should have been taken enough now that if you want to take them case by case, particularly statewide polls, and look at where the trend is. You want to see where the trend is going, and just don't look at it necessarily from what the national poll says, because that's irrelevant. What matters, of course, is the Electoral College, and also you kind of want to see which campaigns got the momentum, where people are moving in the news cycle, because everyone assumes it'll be pretty close. And if you see, you want to track where it's trending, and everything feels kind of flat right now.
Do you trust the RNC that they're on it? Because they've told us they're on it.
No, I don't. But I do like what they're doing relative to years past. I know they're in heavy communication with you, Mike. Same thing with me. It feels like they're trying to tap into the grassroots energy, which I do think matters in a big way. So I'm pretty satisfied at the improvement of effort. But I don't know if that competes with what the DNC is doing and their army of lawyers and their army of community organizers and their grassroots energy. And we're going to see in November. But they have to validate whatever. I like the energy, but they got to validate it with a victory here.
I want to talk to you about this California thing because we just on Bill O'Reilly, and Bill O'Reilly said his advice to Trump is talk issues. I don't know how true that is, if that's like the best advice, but whatever. He wants to talk issues. Okay, well, we'll talk issues. So in the 7 o'clock hour, we talked about Prop 57 in California. And this was a part of Prop 47. We did the whole story earlier, but the point is to get all these people out of jail. That was the whole point. So we passed Prop 47, which said you can steal up to $950 worth of stuff. It's no longer a felony. It's now a misdemeanor. And now we see the fruit of that. Prop 57 made all these non-violent felonies eligible for parole. And it passed 64-35, nonviolent felonies, you're eligible for parole. And people are like, yeah, great. And what people didn't ask was, well, what is a nonviolent felony? And no one learned until after, excuse me, that rape of an unconscious person is a nonviolent felony. You can drug a woman, rape her, and that's considered nonviolent. Human trafficking, nonviolent. Child abduction, nonviolent. Elder abuse, nonviolent. Assault with a deadly weapon, nonviolent. And Kamala Harris was the Attorney General when this passed.
Wow.
So she was behind this. She supported it, and she signed off on the ballot language. And there's obscene examples. There was a guy who stabbed his girlfriend with a knife, molested his 11-year-old niece, and gang raped his 17-year-old a 17-year-old pregnant teenager. And all three of those things were considered nonviolent under Prop 57.
Wow.
And it's been, that was 2016. So it's been 9 years, and there's been all these efforts by Republicans in Sacramento to classify these things as violent, and they all get killed in committee.
Yeah.
So that it's not like we haven't woken up to this yet. They just refuse to classify these as violent crimes. And I bring it up because there was a guy, he was the heir to the Max Factor fortune, makeup, and he was sentenced to 124 years in jail for date raping a bunch of women in LA, and 124 years, and he's getting out in December. And so he's put 21 years in jail, 21 years out of it. He's got 103 left. But his date raping was considered nonviolent, so he got parole. So that's Kamala.
Wow. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I feel like her record hasn't fully been explored. She hasn't fully been vetted, but that's obviously the point the Democrats want, is just to basically say she's not Trump and she loves abortions, and that's good enough for us. And that's the move, and to try to get her to talk as little as possible. It always goes bad when she does. And I just think that we normally should have a little more time to come up with stuff like that, to think about it, and the left knows that, and that was their tactic this time. And, it could work for them. Very well could.